me pray and then let's dive in. Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege on a Friday afternoon to gather together and consider what it's like to be a great team, a healthy team. Pray that you would speak to us, give each of us something that we can take away, many things, to help honor you with not only what we do, but how we work together. In Jesus' name, amen. So here's what I'm actually going to do real quick because I want to be able to I want to be able to see you guys. Let me see real quick how where do I do my host tools. Let's see. Give me 1 second, y'all. Here we go. The layout. Let's go. All right. Now I'm feeling good about that. Um, okay. So 105, let's launch into it. My name is Matt Bradner, Matty B. I live in Lynchburg, Virginia. My wife, Julie, and we met in college and we've been married 24 years. We have 5 kids. Our oldest is about to graduate college in 2 months. So we are almost entering the phase where we have college graduates. I became a Christian as a freshman in college, largely connected to the ministry and evangelism of a brand new campus outreach staff guy named Joe Naramore. Many of you know Joe. He's still on staff, the East Coast Network director. And I've really served in in a lot of the staff roles. So campus staff, campus director, area director. We pioneered a ministry into Virginia, so I was a pioneering director. And then in 2019, I had an opportunity to pivot out of the role of campus outreach Lynchburg and now Central Virginia director and into a role that really lined me up with my passions, which is East Coast staff development in team and leader health. And I've always been passionate about team health and leader health. And in 2019, I was able to get into a role doing that. And right at that time, one of my supporters and good friends, who's an executive with Chick-fil-A, he called me up. Matt, now that you're moving into a more consultant type role where your ministry's geographically broad, what if you formally began, because we were working informally, what if you formally began doing some consulting in team and leader health with Chick-fil-A? So in 2019, I created a consulting company called Proximity Consulting, and I began to do a little side consulting with Chick-fil-A corporate. I mentioned that because, as you're going to hear, the model that I'm presenting to you today, I actually developed first with the Chick-fil-A team. In addition to working with Campus Outreach and Chick-fil-A, I also now partner with Desiring God Ministries in launching a campus initiative. So I just get to work with amazing people. Today, in this 60 minutes, we're thinking about this question: what makes a great team? Now, this is a current question for me because of my work in team and leader health, but it's not a new one. I actually began thinking about this question at the age of 11. Now, let that sink in. In 1988, as an 11-year-old, I began focusing on this question. Now, I paused because that seems impressive, but let me give you the context. My buddies and I, we were all about Nintendo sports games. And in 1988, they debuted their original ice hockey game. And what's interesting about this game is when it came out, we went to Blockbuster Video. Very few of you would even know the joy that I'm expressing. And we looked to see if there was a copy, and there was. And we went back to Tom Montalbano's house and we put it in, and we wanted to play some hockey. But before we could play, we first had to pick teams. Now you say, well, that's not a big deal. Just pick a team. It wasn't NHL hockey teams you picked. the teams were picked from one of three types of players. You ready for these breaking graphics? Oh, here they are. That's not legit. It's just the way the graphics were. So we were faced with the dilemma that we had to select a combination of five players from these three people. There was a skinny guy, there was a medium or average guy, and there was a big guy, and they all had strengths and they all had weaknesses. And so we wanted to play hockey, but we found ourselves debating literally for hours, what makes a great team? Do you go all fast? Do you go all average? Do you go all big? What makes a great team? Today, I want to try to answer that question that I started wrestling with as an 11-year-old, and I know that we all wrestle with what makes a great team. And I'm going to present it in a model called a team on the up. I mentioned that I first developed this working with a team that serves out of the corporate headquarters with Chick-fil-A. It's the team known as customer throughput. Now, customer throughput is tasked with the job of making Chick-fil-A's drive-through, that's what they initially were when I started working with them, drive-through as effective and efficient as possible. You already know that this is a winning team, right? Chick-fil-A and drive-through. Well, to give you a little glimpse of this team, they were recently covered by the Wall Street Journal in an article about our innovative use of drones, etc. Now, I'm not going to suggest that a team on the up is the reason why customer throughput and Chick-fil-A drive-through is so successful, but I will definitely stand on the truth that these principles that I'm going to present to you, they have added to the effectiveness and enjoyment of this team. So, before we dive in to what a team on the up is, I think it's right to start with the mutual understanding of why team dynamics matter. Why is this so important? And I'm going to start with a little word from the book of Nehemiah. If you know Nehemiah, the wall of Jerusalem had been torn down. Nehemiah heard it, and Nehemiah embraced the task of leading the charge to rebuild the wall. And they began to do that, and then opposition came against them and began to threaten, if you continue to build, we're going to attack you. So Nehemiah is at an interesting point where the people stopped building. He needed to inspire them to get back to work. So Nehemiah thought, what could I do to get the people to get back to work, even in the face of opposition? And this is what he did. Therefore, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. And then, once he positioned them by families, he gave his best Herman Boone, if you know, remember the Titans, that's the Denzel Washington character, or William Wallace in Braveheart. He gave his best inspirational speech, and this is what he said. After I looked things over, I stood up and said, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your families. Nehemiah knew a powerful principle, and it's this: we work better when we want to work together. We work better when we want to work together. If you had a task, if you had something of a challenge, an obstacle to overcome, and you give me some eye black, and you give me my wife, my four sons, and my kick butt daughter, and you lock arms with the Bradner clan, we will get at it because we work better when we want to work together. This is why team matters so much. You remember being in grade school and the teacher would say, hey, number off between 1 and 6, we have group assignments. And you know what would happen? You would see the number 1, 2, you would see your buddy do a 2, and you would weasel your way into place so that when it comes around you, you go 2, and all of a sudden you erupt and you and your buddy, you give each other high fives and you say, "We're going to crush you." And the teacher says, "You don't even know what the assignment is." And you look at your buddy and you say, "It doesn't matter." And you know what? It probably didn't matter because we work better when we want to work together. You know, the scriptures, we see this in many other places. Two are better than one. They have a good return for their work. So this is teams have great return, but you also see relationship. When somebody falls down, one can help him up. And you see how can two keep warm? So there's warmth, there's return in relationships. In other words, we work better when we want to work together. Here's the interesting thing. It's not just a scripture that knows this, but the social sciences are starting to understand it as well. One of the research that I'm going to commend to you for employee engagement, workplace dynamics, and workplace well-being is the Gallup organization. And the Gallup organization has done so much studies on workplace dynamics, and they did one on this. What's the correlation between employee engagement and workplace enjoyment? If you look at this sentence I have, we work better, that's employee engagement, when we want to work together, that's employee enjoyment. Before I show you just a one-page summary of the study, let me just tell you, this is what an engaged employee is according to Gallup. An engaged employee is involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to their work and workplace. This is everything we want to be in a teammate, and this is everything we want in our teammates. And Gallup asked the question, is there a connection between these people and whether they enjoy those whom they work with? And this was the summary of the study. Now, it's titled Liking Who You Are Working With Throughout the Day. And I want you to know the solid line toward the top are those who are engaged workers. And remember, that's who involved, enthusiastic, committed in their work. The dotted line are those who are disengaged workers. Now, on the y-axis, that is low level of enjoyment all the way up to high level. And on the x-axis, it's just the time of day. I want you to notice something. At 9 a.m., both people start the same level of enjoyment with those they work with because at 9 a.m., when you get to work, you see the people you like. But watch what happens the moment work starts. Enjoyment for the disengaged plummets until lunch. You go back and see your friend, and then you say, off to purgatory. You go back to work, right? But those who are highly engaged report high level of enjoyment of who they're working with. We work better when we want to work together. But watch this, and this is why I love this study. What happens between 5 and 6 p.m.? People usually go home. Notice the disengaged worker who doesn't enjoy who they work with, their engagement level goes down even further, and their enjoyment level when they leave, when they go home. But those who are engaged, which means they're doing quality work and they're enjoying those who they worked with, team dynamics, their level of engagement goes higher. You want to make a difference in homes, in churches, in cities, in communities. You create a workplace where this is happening. We work better when we want to work together. It's the best thing for the home. It's the best thing for the community. So that's a little glimpse at why. Let's go into a team on the up. A team on the up is a four-part framework that counters four major threats to being a great team. And here are the four threats. And as I described them, I want you to think, are these threats that you previously have encountered on your teams or currently see? Threat number one, a team on the way down lacks clarity. No one's really sure what exactly are we aiming at. A lack of clarity results in confusion. And when confusion begins to take root on a team, then that's the soil where we have division and where we scatter. We don't have clarity. What is it that we're doing? It's the first sign of a bad team. A team on the way down also lacks care. We might have clarity, but there's no care. There's no sense of enthusiasm and joy and excitement in what we get to do and who we get to do it with. Teams on the way down lack clarity, they lack care, and they lack contribution. While some people on the team may be engaged in contributing to the work, there are other team members, or maybe many, who are metaphorically sitting on the bench. And you know what this results in? A lack of contribution results in withdrawal. Does it really matter if I show up? Will I be missed? Teams on the way down lack clarity, care, contribution, and lastly, consistency. Whether it's in results or relationships, the team experience is down because teams who lack consistency have never learned what actually helps us succeed, what promotes to our failure. How can we avoid that? And how can we lean into what promotes success? So I wonder if you feel or have felt any of these: a lack of clarity, a lack of care, a lack of contribution, a lack of consistency. The Team on the Up model was built to help teams counter this by bringing clarity, care, contribution, and consistency. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you the overview of the model. Then I'll tell you what we're going to do from there. We counter a lack of clarity by getting united in purpose. United in purpose is our scoreboard, and it results in a common direction. We know where we are collectively headed. We counter a lack of care by being unrivaled in passion. You see where I'm going here with the Team on the Up, united in purpose, unrivaled in passion. Unrivaled in passion begins to take shape a storyboard, and it results in strong conviction for what we get to do. We counter a lack of contribution by creating a culture where everyone understands that they're unique in persons. And as we begin to help everyone understand their uniqueness, that becomes the springboard that launches them into meaningful work. Not only meaningful in contribution, but enjoyment. And then lastly, we counter a lack of consistency with unstoppable progress. This comes to creating a sounding board culture, which is a culture and environment of feedback. And what this does is it prevents stagnation. It prevents success from being a thing in the past, and it actually creates ongoing maturation. So this is a team on the up, united in purpose, unrivaled in passion, unique in persons, and unstoppable in progress. Let me give you a few ways to think about it, and then I'll tell you where we're going. The Team on the Up framework builds teams. And as you hear this, I want you to say, is this a team you want to be on? With clear direction, strong conviction, full participation, and ongoing maturation. That's what this framework does. And I'm not only giving it to you in theory, I'm going to explain it in practice. But let me give you one more thought before we dive in. The easiest way that I have discovered to communicate a team on the up is through an airplane, up, up, and away. An airplane has two wings, and each wing is fueled by an engine. If you want to be a great team, you will not fly if you don't have two wings. And you won't get off the ground very long if you don't have two engines. And this is it. A team on the up is clear in purpose. That's one wing. They're contributing people. Clarity of purpose, contributing people. Those are the two wings. But in order to sustain the wings for longevity, purpose is powered by passion. People are powered by progress. That's a team on the up. I'm telling you as a team leader, if you will lean into those four areas: clarity of purpose, fueled by passion; contributing people, fueled or powered by progress. You will see a dynamic team. Okay, so this is what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to walk through and double click on each of the four of these in order to help you understand not only what a team on the up is, but how you can build it into your culture. And I want you to think about these as all being on dimmer switches. The dimmer switch was an amazing invention because it enabled you to keep a light on, but be able to adjust how bright it is. I want you to think, as I'm describing these, when it comes to clarity, united in purpose, how bright is our, is this, and how bright does it need to be? The dimmer switch says, and this is where I'm going with this. Following this, you're probably going to recognize, you know what? I think we need to turn up passion. For some reason, our team just naturally doesn't go there. Or I think we need to turn up unique in persons, but all of them always have to be on. Some seasons, we just need to turn one of these on brighter than others. So that's the framework. A team on the up starts with being united in purpose. United in purpose is our scoreboard. And it ultimately is about getting crystal clear on our main objectives. Now, I love the image of a scoreboard because in a sporting event, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of plays, but only a handful of plays actually put points on the scoreboard. Getting united in purpose is putting words to the plays or the results that put points on your scoreboard. Is everybody clear that we could do 100 things, but these are the few that actually put points on the scoreboard that God has called us to? I mentioned the Gallup organization and the research that they've done on workplace well-being, employee engagement. They did a decades long, and they're still doing it, on employee engagement. What leads to those people that are committed to, involved in, enthusiastic about their work? And they did a global study, millions of workers, and they came up with what they call Q12, 12 statements. If these 12 statements can be answered with yes, then you have a highly engaged team, which I would just say is a great team. It's a team on the up. You know what the number one and most basic statement is? I know what is expected of me at work. This is Gallup's way of saying we spent millions of dollars to discover that great teams and great teammates are united in purpose. They get clear on what's expected them to. So, how do we do this? It first starts with getting clear on our external purpose, putting words to what we are uniquely positioned to do for others. Now, campus outreach. You would say, well, our mission statement, glorifying God by building laborers on the campus for the lost world, that's our external purpose. Yeah, that's our mission, but I think you probably could use a workshop on putting some words to what you are uniquely positioned and required to do in order to do that. Like in the season of ministry you're in, what puts points on a scoreboard underneath that? What's your external purpose? So, with the customer throughput team at Chick-fil-A, we went through a process, and it's not hard. It really is answering 4 questions. We had the whole team do it, and I'll send those to you afterwards. I'm not spending time on these 4, and I'll tell you why in a second. But this is what we came up with. This is customer throughput's external purpose. And every word matters to them. We equip operators and internal teams. So it's not only the store owner, but it's also equipping corporate headquarters to maximize restaurant throughput potential by studying and sharing best practices from across the chain. What's so great about this is we wrestled over, they're not creating the best practices. They're studying, where are they? And then they're sharing. But that was their external purpose. They put words to it. And everything they do, that's what puts points on the scoreboard. What is it for you in your region, your campus? But here's the thing, most teams stop with an external purpose. That's only half of clarity. That's like one of two eyes. You're missing something big if you just have external purpose. And let me explain it this way. Uh, you hopefully have heard of the work that Google did in workplace dynamics. It's called Project Oxygen. And they wanted to know, what are the characteristics that define those who have succeeded most in our company? One of the most, in terms of most metrics, successful companies in the history of the world. They want to know who succeeded in our company. And they had a hypothesis that it was those who were superior in STEM expertise, which is why they hired them. And they did a years-long study and they discovered this. They discovered that the top 7 characteristics that defined the most successful people at Google were not about what they knew or could do, but about who they were and how they worked with teammates, how they worked with others. This study has been replicated over and over and over by so many other companies and organizations and military and nonprofits that ultimately what matters is not only getting clear on what you do for others, your external purpose, but it's also putting words to your internal purpose, which is how you commit to work together. This is like the secret sauce of united in purpose, is not only what we do, but when we gather around the staff table, our commitments in how we work together. And this is why I told you I'll send you a process on how to put words to what you do for others, but I want to make sure you see one way to put words to your commitments to each other. We simply asked 4 questions. We had everybody do this. It's one thing for leadership to say, hey, here's our internal purpose. But it doesn't necessarily have the bite as if we do it together. Number one, everybody answers, what should you be able to expect from your teammates? They write on sticky notes, they go put on the board under that. And then we said, what should it feel like to be on this team? Everybody put thoughts. And then we said, sometimes it's just easier to answer in a negative. What should it never feel like on this team? And then lastly, what do we want to be known for? We had, dozens of sticky notes under 4 questions, and we just grouped them into themes. And we had about 10 to 12 themes. And then we voted on those themes, and we landed on 4 themes that represent the internal purpose, the internal commitments that who customer throughput says they commit to not being for others, but being for one another. And you know what we did? We put them in phrases that end in up because that's what teams on the up do. And this is what we came up with. And I think this is the secret sauce of some of their effectiveness is they said, we commit to be a team that shows up. And there is meaning behind that I'm not going to go into. We commit to always wanting to level up. We commit to a culture of lift up. And we commit to circle up. That was their internal purpose. I would tell you the first thing you do is you put words, clarity around your external purpose, and then words around your internal purpose. And maybe you do this every few years. But here's the deal. Imagine that I'm on an airplane and I'm sitting next to a pro football player. And I say, hey, how's it going? He says, it's not going good at all. He says, and I go, tell me about it. He says, well, I was underneath a big pile of football players and people started poking me in the eye. They started giving me a wedgie. They started, hitting me in my ribs. It was really hurting. And I was like, well, what did you expect? It's football. And imagine he says, oh, no, this wasn't in a game. This was in the locker room. This was my own team. Instantly, we got a different problem. Like when you get united in purpose, you're not only getting clarity about what you do for others, but you're getting clarity about what happens in the locker room per se. The second category, let's shift to how can we counter a lack of care? How can we be unrivaled in passion? Unrivaled in passion is igniting joy and purpose for what we get to do. It's where you have strong conviction. And I call this you create a storyboard culture. A storyboard is imagine a tack board where you tack up pictures and quotes and moments that just fuel you up and fire you up for life. We do this within our organizations and teams. Do you know there's been a lot of studies on workplace dynamics that have discovered in the last few years something costs teams, organizations 15 to 20 times more than sick days. You know what it is? It's distraction. We're distracted. We know it, right? We're distracted, but you know what? People, when do you get distracted? You get distracted when you don't care. Imagine being on a first date, and you look over and the guy or girl with you, they're just like this. And you're like, hey, are you ready to order? They're like, 1 second, defeating a really important clan in Clash of Clans, or saying whatever it is. Like if your date's distracted, you would know they don't really care, right? Like studies say when you're in the moment where you care the most, you never multitask. If you were on the phone and your spouse said, hey, I think somebody's following me, wherever you were, you would stop because you're not distracted when you care. We got to tap into our level of care on teams. I put a yellow box around unrivaled in passion. I'm a weather guy, and the yellow box in weather represents a watch. A red box is a tornado watch. I'm sorry, a red box is a tornado warning, thunderstorm warning, hurricane warning, which means there is one here. It's imminent. But a yellow box represents a tornado watch, a thunderstorm watch, a hurricane watch, which simply means the conditions are favorable. It's not here and now, but the conditions are favorable for it. I put a yellow box around unrivaled in passion because the conditions are always favorable for teams and teammates to lose their passion, to forget why they do what they do. And I'll tell you, when it comes to campus outreach and faith-based work, loyalty, which is often represented by your purpose, it remains much longer than love. We lose our love while our loyalty remains, and that's a dangerous combination. We need to take serious the call to consistently power our purpose with passion. You know, I really give two ways to do this. The first is storytelling, and I'm just giving you examples. Like the great thing about a team on the up in all four of these, whether it's united in purpose, unrivaled in passion, all four of them, you figure out how to massage and marinate them into the teams you're leading. I'm giving you examples that I've found effective. The first one from a collective group, it's storytelling. And then I'm going to give you one from an individual level called job crafting. Storytelling, external purpose, which is there on the left, and internal purpose, they're really definitions. They're definitions of what we uniquely are positioned to do for others and how we commit to work together. And definitions are important, but definitions lack something. They have a shortcoming. And the shortcoming is that definitions don't move us. They don't move us. I want to try a little something. I'd like for you to close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, then that's fine. You can read it. But listen to this. an intense feeling of deep affection. Okay, you can open your eyes. How much did that move you when you heard that? Did anybody get goosebumps, an intense feeling of deep affection? Well, you know what that is? It's the definition of love. Definitions are important, but they don't move us. You know what moves us? Descriptions move us. Teams get united in purpose. You put words to your external and internal purpose, but then you must create a storyboard culture where you consistently describe when you live out your external and internal purpose. And that's storytelling. The beauty of this, as you tell stories, you ask this question, you gather together. I would say at some point of every staff meeting, take 5 minutes at the beginning and say, can someone describe a time this past week where we or somebody we're connected to lived out our external or internal purpose? And you tell a story, and I promise you, you could read your purpose over and over and over. It won't move you. But when somebody describes it, that's when people are like, let's get it. Come on. Because descriptions move us. I could read the definition of love, you not get goosebumps. But if I tell you that 2 years ago, my dad passed away suddenly, and now when I speak on things I know he loves, I write his name at the top of my notes. If I told you that, somebody out there probably felt a little tear, you felt a little emotion, because that's what descriptions do. Descriptions move us. We move through storytelling. A leader once asked me, he said, I'll give time to storytelling when I recognize passion's missing. I said, when do you prepare for the tornado? When the warning is alerted, it's here, or when the watch. Well, you're under passion watch. Always give time to passion. You know who's doing this so well? You know who's crushing this? So in Team on the Up, I'm constantly on the lookout for who else is doing this. And you know who's doing passion? I'll come back and explain that. Is NFL locker rooms. They all, and these videos are going viral. Everybody just played the game. They were all there. They know nobody gets informed in the locker room, but yet they recognize a key part of our culture is to take advantage of moments post game where we describe in detail who and what happened. And dude, people go nuts in the locker room. Here's my question to you. In the culture, in the rhythm of your team, when do you hand out game balls? When do you celebrate who and what? If you're not doing it, you got to figure out a way, or you're not powering your purpose. One little tip I forgot to mention, let's say you're at a monthly meeting or a quarterly meeting, and you're just going to give some time to passion. And you say, describe a time where we lived out our mission or our internal purpose. Somebody should be at the board, and when somebody is sharing a story, look for the pull quote. It's the quote that captures. It's, if you were writing it in an article, you would make it the big quote that you would say, tweet this. It's the quote that somebody says, I never thought you could understand the Bible. Man, I would write that on the board. So I would have somebody just telling stories and somebody writing little pull quotes that as you're going, everybody's looking at them and they're like, this is who we are right there. Oh, it's so good. Second is job crafting. I'm not going to spend as long on this, but next week I go to a conference at Harvard Business School on work and well-being that I've been to the previous number of years. I got invited to it with some Chick-fil-A folks. And I heard a concept last year that I immediately was like, I'm applying this in with campus outreach. And it's job crafting. Job crafting says this: instead of looking for purpose in your work, learn to bring purpose to your work. Now, it's easy for us to say, well, our work is purposeful. Okay. But sometimes we grow cold to that. So one way you spark passion is you help people understand and put words to their passion, their purpose, their why. And then you help them answer this question: how can you bring that into what you do on the campus? This is so effective. So I created this thing called the Unique Leadership Handprint, which is just a way of helping people put words to their consistent impact, their desired contribution, what they love to do, their areas of expertise, what people consistently ask them for, and their superpower moments. And you put words that, and then you say, hey, when and where can you do that in your everyday work? Man, that's when you start getting fired up. That man, I'm not just like Chick-fil-A. They say, I just happened to spend some time with Dan Cathy, who's our former president, just a couple of weeks ago. It was random. It was amazing. He's one of the greatest leaders I've ever met. And he said he we were having breakfast and he says, don't tell anybody. We're not in the chicken business. We're in the leadership development business, masquerading as a chicken company. And he was passionate, right? Because he recognizes that he's passionate about leaders. And it's My Pleasure, Second Mile Service. That's what they do. They just sell chicken in order to keep the lights on. Like, find out what fires you up. What do you love to do? And how can you bring it in your work? And when you do that, watch this. So some campus outreach, serve staff. We did storyboard, which is a passion thing, and the handprint. And then we asked this question: what would it look like to get all hands on deck, which is everybody bringing this that they're passionate about to what they do? I've done it with businesses, nonprofits, just fun ways to spark passion. Bottom line, most teams' biggest problem is not getting people to show up. It's getting people who show up to care. Campus outreach, take serious your passion. You're on passion watch. Every one of your staff are constantly on passion watch. Loyalty is great. Loyalty without love is dangerous. Get clear on your purpose and then power it with passion and get creative on how that happens. Number 3 is we counter a lack of contribution by creating a culture where we understand that everyone is unique in their personhood. And we want to bring out the best in each teammate. This is a springboard into meaningful work. The springboard is a little launch, a little lift. Like, there are things about each of us that we just have a little bigger lift in to meaningful work. And here's the question: are your team members able to bring their best to work each and every day? And this really starts with, do they know their best? Do we know their best? And then are they positioned to bring it to their work? I want to share a nugget that has just encouraged me and challenged me from Exodus 18 that is connected to Unique in Persons. Exodus 18 is when Moses is visited by his father-in-law Jethro. Jethro observes Moses' leadership, and look what he says. He says, after a day of observing Moses, "Why do you sit alone while the others stand around?" He says, you sit there and everybody stands around you while you do the work. I wonder how many of our team dynamics could be characterized by a team leader or team leaders sitting alone and everybody else standing around. Well, watch what Jethro says next. It's pretty powerful. He says, what you are doing is not good. You, and this is what struck me, and these people who come to you will wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. We would expect Jethro to say, why do you sit alone while they stand around? You are going to wear yourself out. But he doesn't. He says, the way you're leading is not only wearing you out, it's wearing everybody else out as well. And so here's the principle. It's exhausting to lead alone, but you know what? It's exhausting to follow a loner. We were all meant to contribute. So, as team leaders, you asked the question, what does it look like for me to bring my best every day? And what does it look like for me to know the best of those who I'm working with, whether they're student leaders or whether they're staffs, and empower them to bring their best every day? They're exhausted by you doing all the work. They're exhausted by not bringing their best. Well, how do you do this? You can do this in hundreds of ways. The current way that I love to start a conversation, which good tools are just good conversation starters, is by the Working Genius. Before I get there, once again, Gallup Q12, number 3. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. These are basic levels of employee engagement, which is involved in, committed to, and enthusiastic about my work in the workplace. I mentioned, I love the Working Genius. The Working Genius, it's just the current one of the current tools. I think starts a conversation about the work that you find enjoyable and that you're effective in. It highlights your working genius and your working frustration, and it also really is not meant to be just an individual exercise, navel gazing. It's meant to be done on teams where you look at your team map and you identify, if we didn't know this team, what would we say their opportunities are, their threats are, what are they great at, what are they going to struggle in? I like Working Genius. Burnout is often a result of not doing too much work, but rather doing work you don't find fulfilling. This is why you could take a long vacation and come back, and the first day back, you feel burned out again. It's not the amount of work, it's the type of work. So we want to identify what's the best that each person brings. And it's not that they only do that. Like, so sorry, not my genius. I have a frustration of tenacity. Sorry, I didn't show up. Tenacity. No, it's not an excuse. Rather, you position people to get the best out of them. And oftentimes, in your genius, you recognize when things are missing first. What happens when we begin to lean into unique in persons, which is, I'll go ahead and tell you, I wish I didn't have this on yet. Bad teams, sorry, I don't have this slide. Bad teams are full of individuals that are saying, hey, hey, look at me. This is what I do great, while they're hiding their limitations. That's a bad team. Individuals are clamoring, look at me, but hiding who they're not. Great teams, the teammates say, look at you, you're crushing it. And the individual says, and yeah, let me tell you about some places I'm struggling. That's a great team, man. Oh, that's what we're trying to get at, is the ability for teammates to celebrate each other before you complain. So, as we learn each other's design, we realize many of our team problems we take personal, but they're just really predictable. We're empowered to celebrate others' strengths instead of only complaining about their shortcomings. And then we stop concluding others' differences must be deficiencies, and we start to seek to be better together. Culture follows conversation. Find tools that spark good conversations about the uniqueness of each person. Lastly, we counter inconsistency by being unstoppable in progress. Unstoppable in progress creates a sounding board environment where we have a culture of feedback, the desire to be better than yesterday. Feedback is essential to help contributing people continue their progress. Feedback is essential to help contributing organizations continue their progress. Leaders often say, oh, I give people plenty of feedback. I was recently with a Chick-fil-A owner operator is what Chick-fil-A calls it, but but a store owner. Um, and she is very high performing. She says, "Oh, I give people feedback every time I'm with them." And I said, "Oh, no, no, no. That's not what I'm talking about first. I'm not talking about you giving other people feedback first. I'm talking about you modeling, pulling feedback into your life first. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, I tell people what they do wrong all the time, or I give them feedback on what they do right. But really, a culture that's unstoppable in progress starts with leadership who are creating opportunities to get feedback. There is a book, thanks for the feedback, and it's so good. And essentially, I'm going to summarize it. Well, no, I'm not. I'm just summarizing the big idea that people spend millions of dollars trying to help their leaders push feedback into an organization. But at the end of the day, the power rests in the ears of a 1 week employee. You could have the world's greatest feedback giver, and the 1 week employee doesn't want to hear. They say the way that you shape a culture, a healthy team, is you get people to want to pull it into their lives. You don't say, how do we press it in? How do we create a culture that pulls it in? And the way you do that is by modeling it. So I encourage every team leader to consistently model pulling in feedback. So here's an example. I think you ought to regularly, not weekly, but at least quarterly, probably monthly, you ought to regularly ask your team these 3 questions. And here's what you do. Don't ask these questions and then open the floor up, because people like me talk. The people who think they have a good idea at first, that don't vet their ideas. The people who have the best stuff, it's probably the people who wait to see if an idea is perfect, but by that time you've ended the discussion, right? So you give everybody sticky notes and you say, hey, I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to write the answer to this question. What's something that we are currently doing that you feel could be improved? And you say, you don't have to have the answer. You don't have to have a suggestion. Just what is it? Is it the way we do our expense reports? Is it the way we do our weekly meeting? Is it our cadence for one-on-ones? What is it? And everybody puts it up, right? And then you read them. Maybe you theme them and you say, okay, we're not going to do it today, but we need to give time to this one because the majority of the room said it. Here's the second question. If we had to start something new, what would you suggest? We had to. We got to start something new, anything new. Have people write down, put the feedback on board. Like, wow, you know, 80% of us said that we would start a prayer meeting. Seems like God's really doing something. Or 80% of us said we would, whatever it is. And then the third is if we had to stop something, well, we have to. You got to pick something, and that's good because people don't want to tell you what they want to stop. But you say you have to pick something we're currently doing to stop. And then um, you look at it. You know what you're modeling? You're modeling just an openness that I don't fear missing something as in terms of getting it wrong. I fear missing something as in seeing what God wants to teach me. Here's the bottom line with a sounding board. Great teams consistently communicate the value of feedback and consistently create venues for feedback. I know that's a little wordy because that's what I love to do. It's how I remember. Great teams say, how do we consistently communicate we value feedback, we value input, and how do we consistently create a venue for it? Watch this. Um, I had I had the president of a local company um, say that he heard there was an issue with a guy leading an entire department of his company. The thing came to light, and it was a major deal. And he found that there were workers who worked for that guy who saw it for a long time and they never said anything. And the president was pretty fired up. He said, Matt, I'm fired up that they knew that and they didn't say anything. And I said to him, I said, um, uh, when and where could they have said it? I mean like a specific place and time. Do you expect workers to pull aside a CEO of a large company and tattletale on their boss? That ain't happening. You haven't created venues to hear that feedback. If you had venues, then you would have got it. Um, Without venues, if you say we value feedback, but we never create a venue for it, it's like saying, I want your feedback, but I don't really need it. Venues, which is, hey, we're going to gather and hear feedback, but if you don't value it, I need your feedback, but I don't want it. We want to create value and create venues. Okay, 2 o'clock. This is a team on the up. All right. If you guys are still there, let me see let me see in this chat real quick. Um let's see. Are you still there? Okay. Um, uh, because my internet wasn't working earlier, I hotspotted my phone and my phone dies. And it kind of died at a good point, but I want to end with like 5 more minutes and give you a little vision for why I named it what I named it. The first is let me make sure that uh I'm sharing. The first is this. Um, so uh, this is a team on the up. So the customer throughput Chick-fil-A, the team that I walked them through this was our end product, and it captured on one page every component of a team on the up. Uh, it is their external purpose on the far left. We equip operators. Their internal purpose on the bottom, show up, level up, lift up, circle up. The uniqueness of persons, which is their commitment, and the images all represent something. They're all wearing their own little Nikes that they were able to custom create their own Nikes to say we're united in purpose, unique in person, and then unrivaled in passion is some of their pull quotes. Just a fun way to be represent a team on the up. This is what I wanted to end with. I wanted to end with um, you might have noticed that the 4 words in the pictures scoreboard, storyboard, springboard, and sounding board all end in the word board. That's because I think that a team on the up should be a framework for a successful board meeting. Boom. When I say board meeting, I just mean executive leadership meeting. Whether it's a quarterly meeting, and this is what I mean, and I've seen this happen, and it's extremely effective. Once we put words to our scoreboard, then we start our meeting by we put them up, and then we have metrics to evaluate our external purpose and our internal purpose. How are we doing in those? And then we shift to a time where we create space where we describe when and where and who that happened. And then we move into what are the opportunities and the tasks, the responsibilities ahead of us, and who is uniquely gifted to lead those. Who's uniquely gifted to maybe not even if they lead it, but to consult and advise those areas. And then lastly, we always, at every board meeting, we have a space for feedback where we ask those three questions. Is there anything we're doing that we feel like we could be doing better? Is there anything we feel like we would start if we had to or stop? That's a great board meeting. Um, okay. Uh, Team on the up, friends. I think uh that's where I'm gonna end us. And I'm gonna pray. But before I do, I'm gonna put this back up and I want to say this. I'm gonna send this slide deck out to everybody, and I just gave you a few ways that you can begin to solidify the wing of purpose and the wing of people and spark the engine of passion and progress. But those aren't the only two ways that I know of. I know of many more, and I'd be happy to engage with you and help you dream. Pack your bags and also hear from you. Like, how do you do this? But I tell you, you probably maybe a good starting point is to put up the team on the up. Teams on the way down lack clarity, care, contribution, consistency, and then put team on the up and say teams on the up get clear on their purpose. They are unrivaled in their passion. They understand what they contribute, and they have a culture of feedback. And then you just say this. This could be your entire engagement with your team. You have to rate every area 1 to 4. Which do you think we do best? 1. Which do you think we do the worst? 4. And you have everybody do that. And then you step back and you say, what does it tell us? It doesn't tell you anything. It suggests a few things. It suggests where you need to turn up the dimmer switch. So appreciate y'all. So grateful for who you are and what you do and the teams that you're leading. Um, Teams matter. We work better when we want to work together. Lean into this, and watch what happens. You don't only make a better campus ministry, you actually make better marriages and homes and churches and communities, because we leave when we're highly engaged and when we enjoy those we work with, we leave with greater engagement and enjoyment. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for, I think, still working in light of my technical difficulties. I just thank you for that. I thank you for the teams represented here and pray that you would give these team leaders vision and encouragement to start one step at a time, one characteristic at a time. And you don't have to do it all at once. Focus on one characteristic and begin to build out. So, God, would you uh, work in us great teams that others would know we are Christians by the way we love each other, by the way we work together. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everybody. Awesome. Appreciate y'all. I'm gonna stop my share. Um, so uh I was gonna say I'll take questions, but just reach out to me and happy to engage. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Pedro, you're welcome. Thanks, Sam Barker, my man. Matt Reagan, what's up, brother? Tell Matty V, that's what's up. So good. All right, y'all have a great weekend. Don't hesitate to reach out.